As you may have been seeing on the news recently, the wildfires in Los Angeles are continuing to rage on. Wildfires have scorched tens of thousands of acres across Los Angeles, Ventura, and San Bernardino counties, leaving 25 people dead and thousands of homes and businesses destroyed. It's a lot of destruction, and it's horrible to see what's going on out in Los Angeles. And we have someone joining us right now who currently lives in Los Angeles, who has connections right here to the four communities. Mike Kopera, who joins us right now on The Splash. Mike, good to see you.
Good to see you, Jake. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Glad to have you with us. Now, you have connections here because we've actually had your wife, Rachel Capera, who is an artist and a Sylvan Lake native, on our show in the past. So you have ties to this community, but you are currently out in Los Angeles, and you have seen these wildfires firsthand. Describe what the environment was like the night before these wildfires began.
It was pretty crazy. The winds were just insane. I drove my son to soccer practice that night, and like driving down the freeway, it was just there was debris blowing everywhere. It's crazy, but multiple trees had fallen over. I've never seen anything like it before. I dropped my kid off at soccer practice, and I went to a grocery store to run some errands, and I got a call saying that the facility where they were practicing had lost power, so I had to go back. So it was just craziness. And at that point, no one really knew of how bad the fires were going to be because it was just like crazy wind, But you could already tell that the winds were creating tons of damage with the fallen trees, power lines, never seen anything like it.
I know. It's just one of those things where you're having a typical day, a normal day, everything's fine, and things can change that quickly. And suddenly everything is different. So I can only imagine what you had to see firsthand. And these fires have been going on for a while now, but they are being contained. What can you say about being a resident of Los Angeles at the height of these wildfires?
Well, I think the height was Wednesday, January 8th. We woke up. That was the morning after my son had soccer practice. Woke up and like around 7 a.m. And it felt like it was still the middle of the night because the sky was just so dark. I was a little, unnerved by it. And I looked out the window and I was like, what the heck? You could see like where the smoke ended, like far in the distance. I could see actual blue sky. But then the entire sky above us was just dark, reddish black. And, kids got up, we started getting ready to go to school. But at one point, my wife said, yeah, I don't feel comfortable sending them to school today. Just because you walk outside and it smells like a campfire. And so we decided to keep them home from school. And maybe about an hour into the school day, LAUSD announced that schools were closing anyways. So if you did bring your kids to school, you had to come and get them. And we kind of just hunkered down that entire day. For us, it was really bad, as I imagine for other people too. We lost Wi-Fi. We were lucky we actually had power. A lot of houses around us lost power, but it was scary for me because we didn't have Wi-Fi. My cell service where we live isn't that great. So I didn't know if I was even going to be notified if we had to evacuate, or I didn't know how that would work if I didn't have cell service. So it was pretty scary. Our house was never in immediate danger, but, like everyone else in LA, we felt the effects of the smoke and ash.
Well, it's great that you and your family are safe, first and foremost. That is most important, and it's great that things didn't get worse for you guys. But what steps were you guys taking to prepare yourself for the possibility of evacuation or worsening conditions?
Well, we actually decided to leave that day around 4. Because of the sort of the unknowns. We didn't know what the air quality was going to be like. We didn't know if we'd have to be inside, if school was going to be canceled. So we packed all of our important documents, like passports, birth certificates, all that stuff. We packed it all up and we drove. My wife, Rachel, her aunt lives about 7 hours north of here near Lake Tahoe. So we're lucky we had a place to go to. But we were able to drive up there and kind of hunker down there until the air quality got better. But yeah, it really taught us that we need to have stuff ready to go. Have a go bag. I think that's what they're calling it. If you do have to evacuate for any reason.
That's right. Danger can come at any time, any place, any day of the week, and you always have to be prepared for it. For those just joining us right now on The Splash, we have Mike Kopera, who is a Los Angeles resident with connections here to Michigan, talking about his experience in witnessing the Los Angeles wildfires firsthand. Now, Mike, as somebody with roots in Michigan, how do you compare the climate and weather-related challenges that you experienced in Michigan and you're now experiencing in California?
That's funny because my parents still live in Michigan. They live in Boyne City. I grew up in Troy and spend a lot of time over the summers in Sylvan Lake, where Rachel's dad lives. And growing up there, the primary weather-related emergencies, I believe, were tornadoes and like winter blizzards. And I think that, growing up, you knew what to do when you heard the tornado warning or the sirens, or your parents told you, there's a tornado coming, you go down to the basement, right? You go down and you have a place, you have something to do. Or if there's a blizzard, for me, blizzards were scariest when we were actually on the roads. I remember driving with my dad up I-75 once, and we couldn't see more than like 10 feet in front of us. And it's like, at that point, you kind of just have to like trust that you can see the taillights of the person in front of you or the lines on the road. But yeah, I think what I learned from Michigan weather-related emergencies that can apply to LA-related emergencies is to know what to do beforehand. For tornadoes, you have a place to go. For wildfires, you need to just have a to-go bag and have a place to go that's many, many miles away, I guess, not your basement.
That's absolutely right. Make sure you have those precautions in place. And how do you think that this experience and what you've seen changes your perspective on environmental and disaster preparedness?
I think it's just really apparent that there's going to be a lot more crazy events like this that we have to be ready for. A few days before the fires, I was seeing all of the crazy blizzards that are affecting a lot of the other parts of the United States, including my parents in Boyne City. They got like 2 feet of snow dumped on them in the past week. There's just going to be a lot more extremes, and we have to just accept that and be ready for it. And yeah, I think something that my family has discussed and we're continuing to figure out is, where do we meet if we're separated? If my wife is teaching at her school in downtown LA and I'm at home and the kids are at school and, we can't contact each other for one reason or another, where do we meet up? That's, together when disaster occurs. I think that's an important thing to talk about with your family members if you haven't yet. Even though it might be scary to have that conversation, I think it's a good thing to have in your mind, if something like that ever happened.
That's right. It's certainly not the conversation you want to have, but they're necessary conversations if you want to have these plans in place. Now, Mike, being out there in LA and seeing everything firsthand, what have you also seen from the local communities out there in terms of showing their support and leaning upon each other during these wildfires?
It's been really reassuring. As tragic and heartbreaking as it is to see all of the loss and just the struggles that people must be going through, I think the communities have come together and are coming together. I've been hit up with at least like a half a dozen GoFundMe campaigns trying to raise money for families who lost their homes. There's something specific in my community. They're organizing like I think they're calling it like a free shopping day or something where you can come. This is tomorrow, actually. You come and you bring clothes and you bring essentials like baby items that you can donate, and they'll all be in one location. And anyone who's experienced hardship or loss can come and just have at it and take whatever they need. And it's really that's encouraging. The community gets behind one another.
Love to hear about all of that encouragement. Mike Capera joining us right now on The Splash Live, Los Angeles native with ties to Sylvan Lake, talking about his experience in witnessing the Los Angeles wildfires firsthand. I got a couple more questions for you, Mike, before we let you go. From your perspective, what measures should be taken to properly mitigate the frequency and the severity of these California wildfires?
I'm not a fire or policy expert, but I think that, kind of the no-brainer would be that you need to give enough funding to fire departments. I think that, I don't know what the funding situation is like in LA or other parts of California, but, you need to make sure you have enough firefighters. You need to make sure you have adequate resources for them. And then as far as like what people can do on their own, I think brush clearing, making sure you don't have like debris around your house. The winds are something you can't really control. You can't. And that was what clearly drove these fires. You can't control the wind, but you can control what can burn to a certain extent. So I think just monitoring burnable areas more effectively, and keeping that fire department well staffed and well funded is all you can do.
Very wise advice to keep in mind. Last question for you, Mike. As we do try to relate everything back to here in Michigan and here in West Bloomfield, how can West Bloomfield communities educate residents about wildfire prevention and preparedness, even if it is a lot less common here as it is in California?
That's a good question. I think you just have to pay attention and follow what's happening in LA and follow what's happening elsewhere with regard to the wildfires. And I do think that the same rules apply anywhere. Houses burn down everywhere, no matter if you're in Michigan or California. And I think it's just having an awareness of cleaning up your place, making sure that if you have dead leaves, dead branches around, clean them up, and don't leave the stove on.
Simple little tips like that can help make a big difference. Mike, thank you so much for your time today here on The Splash, and please, for you and your family, please stay safe out there.
Thank you, Jake. Thanks for having me.